to another edition of the CustomerSecrets.com podcast. My name is Tim Van Milligan. Today in this therapy session, I was listening to Joe Polish, and he talks about podcasts as therapy sessions, because that's really what they are. We're talking to ourselves, getting what's on our chest off of our chest so that other people can hear it and maybe allow us to decompress ourselves. So I am doing my therapy session with you right now. But today I want to talk about thinking versus feeling in the Myers-Briggs personality indicator. Now, it's the system, not the indicator. The indicator is a test. It's like the SAT test or the ACT. It's just a written test. But the Myers-Briggs system is what the indicator is trying to figure out, whether you're, an extrovert versus introvert, sensing versus intuition, thinking versus feeling, or sensing versus judging. So today I want to talk about that third one, which is feeling versus thinking. A lot of people, when they talk about it, they talk about it as logical versus illogical, or rational versus irrational. And I don't like any of those definitions, because it says that those people with a feeling preference aren't logical. And I don't agree with that. And I'm the guy that says that when people buy, they buy logically, where everybody else says people buy emotionally and justify with logic. So I have to be consistent here. Thinking does not necessarily mean logical, or put it another way, feeling preference does not necessarily mean illogical. It depends on what the definition is. And this is where I have a lot of problems with, Myers-Briggs and other personality systems like, the Big Five, where they talk about this same decision-making parameter as agreeableness. Are you agreeable or are you not agreeable? And I think that's a pejorative, because who in their right mind is going to say, I'm not agreeable? So anyway, agreeableness is not a good definition of the thinking versus feeling trait as well. I think that the feelers, and I'm a thinker, I am like really high on the thinking spectrum, but the feelers aren't being illogical or irrational, or they're not being emotional. And we've talked about that word emotional in previous podcasts. And if you haven't heard my rant about that, you got to listen to them. But feelers are not illogical. It's just that we don't understand their logic. And just because we don't understand it doesn't mean that we can label them as being illogical. They have a different logic. And I think, and I've been just kind of trying to wrap my mind around this a little bit better, trying to distinguish between the thinkers and the feelers. And it goes the other way as well. People with the thinking trait are not non-feelers, because feeling has a specific definition. And this is, when I was talking about emotional versus feelings in a previous podcast, this is where I was trying to make that distinguishment between emotions and feelings. They're different. They're completely different. Emotions are visible. You can see them on a person's face. There's 10 emotions, according to the psychologists. Things like anger, fear, happiness, shame, guilt, embarrassment, disgust, surprise. I don't know if I got them all or not, but there's 10 of them. And everybody has them. Those are the emotions. And when we talked about the emotions, emotions are specific, and there's two things that happen. One is you can actually see them on a person's face. And then second, emotions trigger an action, which is what we as salespeople like to do. And then feelings are like, I'm feeling loved, or I'm hungry, I'm feeling hungry, or I'm feeling hurt, or I'm feeling lonely. There's an infinite number of feelings. There's only 10 emotions. So people with the thinking preference, they do have feelings and they have emotions. So what is the difference between a feeler and a thinker then? And I've been ruminating about this past week, and I think it might come down to, personality is all about decision making. And in this case, this preference is about decision making, how it affects other people, and maybe even on a personal level. Where a thinking person, they don't care as much as to what another person is feeling, what's going through their mind. And I said in a previous podcast, feeling is a cognitive recognition of external stimulus and what it actually means to you. The external stimulus might be my tummy rumbling. And so the feeling is, my brain says, ooh, I must be hungry. And so in a feeling, you have to have this cognitive recognition of outside surroundings. Feelers have that, but I think they also give weight when making a decision to the feelings of other people. Where people like me that have the thinking trait don't really care so much about what is going through the mind of other people. And this, let me say that both people, when they're making a decision, want what is best for other people. It's just that the feelers, they're affected by the feeling states of other people. Let me give you an example. This has happened to me last night. And I was driving in the car with my wife. Now she's a feeler, and I'm the thinker. And we were going to, my daughter is in high school. And they have, proms and homecoming dances and all these things. And the kids get all dressed up. And then they want to go take pictures. This is a big thing, just going to take pictures when you're all dressed up, because they never get dressed up enough. So when they do get dressed up, they want to take pictures. And so they're looking for a place that has a nice background. So when they take their pictures, it's not of a whole bunch of other people in the background. They want something really nice, like a lakefront view. Well, that's where my daughter chose to go. She went to this little park. It's a city park, but it has a lake, and it's a wooded area. And there's a road, a gravel road that goes around the perimeter of the lake. So that's going to kind of set in the picture here. Well, unbeknownst to us, at the park, somebody else was having a festival. They were having a lantern festival where they were going to put lanterns in paper bags and float them out on this little lake. But it was homecoming night, and every school in the city seems to be at that park at the same time. So we've got a festival going on, plus 100 million kids that want to go to this lake and have their picture taken. So we drive into the park, and it's just a madhouse. All the parking lots are filled. And so we're driving around the perimeter of the lake, and then we noticed that all the students, they're young high school students, they don't know any better. They just start parking on the side of the gravel road, on both sides of the gravel road. And so what started out as a two-way gravel road was now cars on both sides of the gravel road with one single lane going through the middle of them. And remember, this started out as a two-way road. So we're driving along, and then all of a sudden, there's a car coming straight at us. Now, it was moving slow, so nobody was in danger. But there was a line of cars behind me. Well, and I was actually two behind the guy in front. So there was one guy in front, then there was another guy, then there was me, and then probably about 8 or 10 people behind me. And then on the other side coming towards us was the same long line of cars. And it was like right in the middle of all this parking. And so what happens? We got stopped dead in our tracks. Okay, so now how does thinking versus feeling come in? Well, me being a thinker, I said, well, if we don't take action, somebody's going to die. Now, it might not be us, but this is a busy park. There's 1 million people here. Well, maybe not 1 million, but it was very crowded. Say somebody has a heart attack in the park and somebody has to call the paramedics. The paramedics are not going to get through this traffic jam. There's no way. No way. So it probably wasn't going to be me, but we could have sat there and starved to death. So I decide to get out of the car. This is me thinking, and I'm not blaming anybody. These are young kids. They don't have any logistical sense like me, because I'm an SJ. I call the SJs the logisticals. We understand logistics, and this was a bottleneck that, what do they call a Gregorian knot? You weren't gonna untie this one. And so we sat there about 5 minutes, and then I decided, okay, I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna just walk to the back of the line and just tell people to start backing up. I'm not blaming anybody, just back up. Well, as soon as I open my door, my wife just freaks out. You can't get out of the car. Why not? How else are we going to get out of this situation? You can't do that. I said, well, who else is going to figure this out? These are young kids in this park. They're not going to figure it out. Somebody with some experience on fixing problems, like an engineer like me, has to figure this out. And so I'm trying to figure out, why is it she's mad at me for getting out of the car to try to fix this problem? And she was mad because I was going to tell people to back up. And she thought that this would be stepping on their feelings, because I don't know, because they're driving forward and now all of a sudden they got to drive in reverse, and it may be an embarrassing situation for them. Or maybe it was my wife was embarrassed by me getting out of the car. I don't know. But I had to get out of the car, and I had to carefully tell the people behind me, can you go in reverse and back up? Now, I was kind of scared because, like I said, these are kids in this park. And kids are notorious for not being able to back up. I knew somebody was going to hit somebody, but they got out all by themselves. And so our line of cars, our 8 or 10 line people that was in our row, we backed up till where we could actually turn around and get out of there. So that is my story of the difference between a thinker and a feeler. We both wanted what was best for the situation. She was not being illogical. To me, it was illogical, but to her, it was pure logic. Don't hurt somebody else's feelings. Don't step on their feelings. And that was her guiding principles. It's not illogical for her. She's been doing this her entire life. And in my situation, I wasn't blaming anybody. I just wanted to get out of that situation in the quickest amount of time for everybody so that nobody in the park died. If somebody had a heart attack in the park, the paramedics would be able to get through. So that's my little rant about thinkers and feelers. I hope it helps you, but maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you think thinking is about being logical. I think there was some logic involved, but it was my logic. It wasn't a feeler's logic. And when you come across a customer, you have to remember how they're making a decision. They may be a feeler, and so they're taking into account other people's feelings. So when you're talking to them, you might ask them, whose feelings are you thinking about as you're making this decision? Or you could suggest to them, which is probably the better way to go, is, hey, when you make this decision, remember you're helping somebody else. You're going to soothe their feelings. Because they're feelers, that's what they want to do. On the other hand, if they're a thinker like me, don't even mention anybody else. Just, how it affects them personally. So until the next time, I hope this helped you. Give me a thumbs up, or give me a comment. What are you thinking? Am I right or am I wrong? I don't know. I really want to know, precise definitions of the things. And if you have a better definition of the thinker versus feeler, please let me know. My email address is tvm@customersecrets.com. And speaking of which, I made this offer a couple of episodes ago. If you would like me to type you, and I want to do it on camera because I want to use it as a training exercise, just the process of being typed or typing somebody else. If you would like to volunteer for that, and it doesn't cost you anything. I know on a lot of other podcasts and YouTube channels, people charge for this. And I don't understand why. To me, it just comes so fast. It's not going to take, less than 10 minutes to do it. And realistically, I could probably type somebody within 30 seconds. And then the rest of the time, I'm just verifying that I've got it right before I, reveal what type they are. But if you'd like to get typed, again, email me at tvm@customersecrets.com. So until the next time, have a great day.